While out of work, Jack Monroe only had £10 a week to spend on food. Often, this meant she would have to go without.
I've had situations, and they were quite frequent, where I would give my son whatever was left in the fridge or the cupboard and go to bed hungry. And I know that I'm not alone in that.
A new Oxfam study confirms the number of people relying on food banks has risen 170%. Volunteers at Peckham's Pecan Food Bank work hard to meet the increased demand.
When I started, I would often see about 5 or 6 clients in the morning, and over the past year, particularly since the government changes, my numbers have risen up to about 25 each morning.
Those in need come with a voucher that entitles them to Pecan's resources. They're given an emergency 3-day supply of food that includes a variety of non-perishable items.
Thank you.
For some families, these kits are invaluable.
Food vouchers what I get is really good because it's helped me out a lot. Really helped me out a lot.
The shelves are kept stocked mainly by the kindness of locals.
These days, the large quantities of donations come from us going to the supermarkets, taking our lists of things we want, and asking shoppers if they'll buy something extra and give it to us.
Unemployment, rising food costs, and stagnant wages contribute to food poverty, but charities and Labour Party officials say benefits cuts are the leading cause.
It's the DWP and National Statistics Office who show that 900,000 additional people went into absolute poverty in the last year. Food banks and others will tell you, Citizens Advice will tell you, that's due to welfare cuts. The government is taking from those who have least already.
Lord Freud, a Tory work and pensions minister, made headlines by saying that increased food bank use had nothing to do with cuts. Prime Minister David Cameron distanced himself from Freud and said his predecessors in government were to blame.
Food bank use went up 10 times under Labour. That is what happened, and it's this government that is helping working people by freezing the council tax, giving 24 million people a tax cut and taking 2.4 million of the poorest people out of tax.
Councillor Coyle's district of Southwark is one of the hardest hit in London by benefits cuts. He feels the government isn't giving enough attention to the issue.
The government is trying to ignore a problem that is putting thousands of people in a very desperate situation. It's not good for the UK, it's not good for our image abroad to know that after a banking crisis we have a food bank crisis.
Taxes! PC! Pay your taxes!
Some have taken to the streets to protest Britain's hidden hunger crisis.
Pay your taxes!
UK Uncut rallied and staged food banks at 13 HSBC banks. They want companies like HSBC to pay more tax so benefits rates can be restored.
I'm a teacher and I see kids actually coming to school hungry. I've had to give students I work with money to get lunch. I'm happy to do that, but I don't see why, when we're the 7th richest country in the world, we have children coming to school hungry.
HSBC did choose to close their locations targeted for protest for several hours. The company did not respond for requests for an interview, but they did release a statement in which they said that tax transparency is incredibly important to them. They said they also support food charities and that they are committed to paying over £1 billion a year in tax in the UK alone. Sadly, Oxfam's figure of 500,000 struggling Britons may be low. It's difficult to accurately estimate how many people private foundations and churches have fed. They've seen sharp increases in demand as well.
We were feeding about 1,000 people in the first 6 months, and now in the last 6 months we've fed about 4,000. So it's kind of, quadrupled the amount of people we're feeding.
Not everyone at Westminster agrees that the situation is as dire as Oxfam suggests.
I think most people would be quite surprised by that number, and they would be interested in the methodology of the study. I don't think there's any doubt at all that more people are accessing food banks now than they were a few years ago, but I think there would be general surprise that the number was as high as that.
Conservatives say cuts are necessary given the UK's rising debt.
Now, it does mean that some individuals are going to face initial difficulty as they sort their lives out and adjust it to the new benefit regime. But carrying on as we were, with benefits getting out of control, would have meant that the country would run out of money and more people would be disadvantaged ultimately.
Luckily for Jack, she's been able to turn her misfortune into a career. She created a blog all about making affordable meals that the whole family will love. Penguin Publishing took note of her rising popularity and offered her a book deal.
People started to follow my blog, people in similar situations who didn't have much money to spend on food and wanted to know how to make their budget stretch further. And it's become quite well known, quite well followed. I get people get in touch with me quite a lot to say how much money they're saving on the food shop.
For many walking the breadline, it may continue to be difficult to keep the cupboards full. For City News International, this is Brooke Kavit.